Nick Fleming RVGCR Intel Update Mountain Goat, article, Warnings Against Ministers of Failure. A day calls on LZD to confront the pressures of the blocs and appoint competent individuals to ministerial positions. Yes, they are always filling these high-paying government jobs as favoritism rather than real skill to do a competent job. Is this also why we sit here over 20 years still waiting for the RV? We are about to see it again with Nouri al-Maliki getting either a vice presidential position or even now he wants the Minister of Oil, al-Zaidi's cabinet position. Did he horse trade his vote to let in al-Zaidi for this? Of all positions in the cabinet, besides finance minister or minister of the interior, this is definitely also one you don't want Maliki meddling around in. He will most definitely mess up the current agreements made with Kurdistan and muck up the oil and gas law now on the table in parliament. We need this law done to get us to the reinstatement. He actually wants to stop the oil and gas law because he knows it will bring conclusion to this constitutional requirement, something the US is demanding prior to the reinstatement. This guy is bad news for any real progress in Iraq. Bruce, the big call, via Wiser Now, what we got from our sources in Iraq, was the new prime minister and, the cabinet of the Iraqi prime minister was to be fully seated and acknowledged as seated, and so, Ali al-Zubaydi is in as prime minister. I do not have confirmation yet as to whether that happened or not from our contacts in Iraq, but we'll see. Tom, al-Zaidi is PM. But the cabinet is half built, the militia ministry battle resumes May 27th, and the dinar doesn't move until dollar flows resume, which won't happen until Washington sees what al-Zaidi puts in interior and defense. The real story starts now. There is more traction on both the IQD and VND since both of these nations elected new prime ministers, both of which are former bankers. And it is moving faster than I have ever seen. Question: is there any possibility that the HCL could pass at 1,310? From what I have seen, no, not if they want their economy to survive. Militiaman, Parliament has successfully voted confidence in al-Zaidi as the new prime minister. After weeks of negotiation, Iraq finally has a functioning government. A stable government removes a major layer of uncertainty and give the economic ministries and the CBI operating room that they need. This is exciting because, this political peace has held things back. They're moving forward in a constructive direction. It's perfect. The United States has been holding back cash because, Iraq, hasn't done what we're looking for. Stephen, Dinar for Dummies. In my 15 years of having been involved with this investment I have never seen the speed and urgency that Iraq is moving with like they are right now. Today is an exciting day to be an Iraqi dinar investor. 14 of 23 ministers were voted on were confirmed. There's still a little bit more to go. However, he met the limit needed to be met in order for his government to be official. Since 2003 Iraq has never met the constitutional deadline with formation of government. Today signifies the first time in 23 years. If that's not something to get you excited, I don't know what is. It doesn't mean the dinar is going to revalue tomorrow, however, things are moving at a pace and a rate I have never seen before. If you are an Iraqi dinar holder you should be very excited. There's a few other guys I've met that are very smart, very intelligent people and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people out there that are invested and believing and are very grounded. It gives you that confidence that I'm not alone. I'm not crazy for thinking that the Iraqi dinar is going to revalue and hit these incredible returns. Jeff, the million-dollar question, how soon could the rate change? Because Iraq has now finished everything they needed to be eligible and ready to revalue, what's the soonest? The rate is only going to change over a weekend. You can disagree with me on that, but the rate will only change on a weekend. This coming weekend is the very first weekend within Iraq's history that they have completed every step and requirement to be eligible to revalue. So the soonest Iraq can change is this weekend. Question: do you think there will be a set time limit to exchange? Absolutely. About 3 months. They've already done that historically, twice. Franul New, response to guest guru Trader John's May 13, 2026 tax post: this is not a 525 taxable event. It is a 988 taxable event. For a U.S. taxpayer, a gain from a foreign currency position like IQD is usually taxed as ordinary income under IRC Section 988, not as capital gains. Investopedia, capital gains treatment is not the default for spot currency holdings, but it can apply in some structured investment cases or if a valid EN is made for certain transactions. So if someone is holding IQD as a plain currency speculation, the default answer is ordinary income treatment, not capital gains. Like I said, you can choose which tax method you wish. Frank 26, KTFA, do we have a fully seated government? No. Do we have a majority vote for a seat in a government? Yes, you need a fully seated government to pass the laws. You still have a caretaker government. That's not the goal. That's not what we want. We're getting there. I'm happy with what happened, but I want more. Reset intelligence. Yesterday, Baghdad swore in 14 ministers in a single-chamber session. Al-Zaidi is 40, the youngest premier Iraq has had, and Trump personally intervened in April to block former Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki's run at the seat. 9 of the 23 posts remain unfilled and the security-facing ministries are among them. Half of the cabinet that runs the economy is in place. The other half that defends Babylon isn't. Within hours of the vote, U.S. Special Envoy Tom Bitschke posted that Washington stands ready to work with the new government on the elimination of TM. Claire, KTFA, article, Bitschke congratulated al-Zaidi on gaining the confidence of Parliament. We want bold action that aligns with our interests. Quote, Tom Bitschke, the envoy of U.S. President Donald Trump, congratulated Iraqi Prime Minister Ali al-Zaidi on Thursday evening for securing parliamentary confidence and the approval of his government by the House of Representatives, expressing his hope for bold action in line with the common interests of Washington and Baghdad. He added, President Trump, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and the United States as a whole stand ready to work closely with you and your government to advance our shared goals of prosperity for the Iraqi people. New World Order advocates were building data centers across the U.S. and world to control and kill millions. The mark of the beast was already decreed in the UK. What was believed to be a cloned King Charles recently announced, my ministers will proceed with the introduction of digital ID. Julian Assange explained the silent manipulation of digital history, warning that centralized internet archives now possess the power to erase, alter and control humanity's collective memory in ways most people never imagined possible. This Illuminati deep state's control over our memory, money, lives and future has been going on for a very long time using their adept knowledge and application of mind control techniques through homage to Satan. In 1994, 160 nations agreed to reduce the world population to 800 million by 2030, the goal of the Illuminati deep state cabal global elites in their New World Order plan to rule over all of the people. They would do it through mind control. Cuba was a prime example of how to control a population. Top Democrats like Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Barb Early of California, Ilhan Omar, Jonathan Jackson of Illinois and Congresswoman Dewa Pramila Jayapal, chair of Congressional Progressive Caucus, have visited Cuba many times to meet with Fidel Castro and learn how to implement communism into the U.S. Declassified CIA documents have revealed a covert psychological warfare program present in the U.S. since at least the end of World War II. It was designed to drug entire populations using food, water, vaccines and everyday items. This was the authentic MKUltra exposed in full, with the battle for control over human minds raging from years past straight into 2026. And most had no idea of its negative influence on society yet because we have been mind-controlled by a paid-off mainstream media that no longer had a clue, nor meaning of a free press. Yet behind the scenes, we were experiencing the greatest transfer of wealth and greatest military sting in the history of the world. President Trump had already returned America to concepts of the original Constitution in a restored republic based on common law. China, too, had been under control of the UK deep state. With Trump's visit and a global currency reset giving them sovereignty to their own monies, China just declared themselves separated from the UK, Vatican and now defunct US Incorporated. We the people were no longer the cabal's debt machine. Soon temporary martial law would rule across every nation. You were advised to secure food, cash and essentials for 10 to 12 days of a possible worldwide lockdown and communication blackout while Trump's global military alliance finished making mass arrests across the world. Trust the plan, God's plan. This was a new beginning. After 10 to 12 days of communication darkness, the world would never be the same. There would be a new republic, economy, and legal, health, political, and education systems. Overnight Thursday, May 15, 2026, President Trump pulled the trigger as he posted this bombshell: arrest Obama the traitor. The question for Trump's global military alliance was, where was Obama? Here. There. Everywhere. In hiding. In Canada. In Ukraine. In the ground at Gitmo. In his mansion basement listening to conversations in the Oval Office. Very confusing. Yesterday, Thursday 15, I posted that it had been confirmed directly from Gitmo Records that in February 2026 Obama had undergone a military tribunal, was convicted of treason and hanged, among many other deep state elites. Evidently the former president had been convicted of orchestrating unconstitutional surveillance on the Trump campaign, with ties to anti-American forces that fueled domestic chaos and foreign interference. Very confusing. On that same Thursday, May 15, 2026, Michael Baxter of Real Raw News posted that Obama was seeking political asylum in Canada. Obama seeks political asylum in Canada. Very confusing, considering he was dead. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard only recently exposed that serious charges were being considered against former President Obama. Very confusing, considering he had gone through a military tribunal. At the same time, Baxter claimed that disgraced former President Barack Hussein Obama, aka Barry Soetoro, formally asked Prime Minister Mark Carney for political asylum in Canada, his latest stop in a global sojourn to find refuge from Trump's military and Department of Justice. Very confusing since the White Hats have fruitlessly hunted Obama since early 2021. Each time they thought they'd caught him, the target turned out to be a body double or clone. Of all the deep state prey White Hats have pursued, Obama has been the most elusive, an ethereal gossamer able to simultaneously appear at multiple places across the globe. As Obama shook hands with Carney in Toronto on May 8, he was also addressing a class of 2026 high school graduates at a Chicago high school. Perplexingly, legacy media, which includes Fox News, never addressed how Obama concurrently surfaced in Chicago and Toronto. One of the two, or possibly both, was a clone or look-alike, according to a source at U.S. Army Cyber Command, RCyber, who told Real Raw News that the military's premier intelligence agency had intercepted a phone conversation between Carney and Prime Minister of Spain Pedro Sánchez Pérez Castejón on May 10, 2026. On the call, Carney told Pérez Castejón that Obama had approached him for help in evading dragnets cast by the U.S. military and Justice Department. He also told Pérez Castejón that, according to Obama, Trump's walls of injustice were closing around him and that, without aid, it was only a matter of time before Barack disappears or Barack dies of natural causes became headline news. Allegedly, Obama had already requested and received asylum and promises of non-extradition from 4 other countries, Poland, Ukraine, New Zealand, and Kenya, the latter his true birthplace. On Carney's call with Prime Minister Pérez Castejón, his voice was trembling with fear. He said he'd probably grant Obama asylum, but he was also wary what would happen if President Trump found out Canada's harboring a fugitive. He's elusive. He can't hide forever, our source said. RCyber is unsure whether Obama or his double/clone met with Carney. Clones are a facsimile of the real deal, and body imposters are well trained to mimic his appearance and mannerisms. The only way to know with 100% certainty is to examine his feet and genitals, or lack thereof. White Hats have exposed Hollywood actors masquerading as Obama at public events, including Star Trek Voyager actor Tim Russ. Back on April 25, 2023, Baxter wrote an article covering Obama's most famous body double, Tim Russ. Star Trek Voyager actor Tim Russ is Barack Obama body double. Tim Russ, the actor who played the Vulcan Tuvok in Star Trek Voyager in the 1990s, has revived his acting career with a fresh gig, portraying disgraced former President Barack Hussein Obama on television and in public, sources at U.S. Army Cyber Command, RCyber, told Real Raw News. Very confusing. For years, alternative news has claimed that Obama actual had faced justice and been replaced by body doubles and doppelgangers, spitting images of the man who reportedly smells like sulfur and was dubbed Lord of the Flies after insects inexplicably landed on his head during numerous press conferences. White Hats, however, remain unconvinced that Obama bought the farm, and say parables of his demise may be premature. As one high-ranking source at Guantanamo Bay told RRN, if someone got him, it wasn't us, and we've not seen substantiable proof he's dead. We've never heard chatter, and his death would be pretty big deal. Irrespective of whether the Dark Lord is upright or planted horizontally in the ground, he has found an ally in Russ, who, sources say, recently played the part of Obama at a speaking event in Sydney, Australia, where 9,000 people paid $900 to hear him and man-wife Michael Robinson praise Aussie gun control laws, blast President Donald Trump, and tout construction of his Obama Presidential Center in Chicago. Russ and Obama have similarities: facial structure, complexion, nose angle, length, and width. They also share a similar enunciation. Obama has bigger ears, but Russ wears prosthetics, as he did to Luke Vulcan in Voyager, when impersonating him. They are in the same age bracket, Russ 66, and Obama 61, and have identical hair texture, though Russ, the dossier said, dyed his to match Obama's shade of gray. Russ wears elevated shoes to account for their difference in height. Obama is 3 inches taller than Russ. The dossier alleges that Russ has been obsessed with Obama since at least 2014. A then 57-year-old Russ petitioned his agent to secure an audition for South Side with You, a 2015 film, entirely fictitious. By the way, about a young, love-struck Obama wooing Michelle on a first date across Chicago. Told he was too old to play the part, Russ argued he could beat age through CGI and play a convincing Barack Hussein Obama. The CIA papers don't say why they need actors to imitate Obama, but clearly say they approached Tim Russ last year. They mention putting Russ through rigorous training so that even astute observers wouldn't be able to tell he wasn't Obama unless they were right up in his face. They taught him to walk, talk, and act like Obama, just like they taught actor Arthur Roberts to pretend to be Joseph Biden. Tim Russ is the new Hussein Obama, our source said. The CIA has a way of making the news very confusing. They appear to be experts at it, but Trump didn't appear confused at all. He hasn't allowed Obama in the White House since his inauguration. March 16, 2026. Obama denied access to White House, Trump, after Obama Foundation sends letter. The Honorable Barack Obama must speak with President Trump personally. By the way, after Trump took office, he had security do a complete remodel of the Oval Office, White House and other federal buildings after they found Obama had the White House completely wired. Gitmo records show the following: arrested and executed November 2025, Hillary Clinton, late 2025, James Comey, John Brennan, other intelligence operatives. December 2025, Anthony Fauci, early 2026, Bill Gates. February 2026, Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell. March 2026, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, George Soros, Boy George, George Clooney, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, Glenn Dubin. Ghislaine Maxwell arrested and serving life in prison. The above seemed hard to believe, until you dig into alternative news articles written around the time of the fraudulent 2020 election. Apparently for years the Democratic Party and some Republican political elites have been working in cooperation with the Chinese and other communist parties to overthrow the U.S. government and set up a new world order. Below was an article I wrote in December of 2020 exposing Obama, Biden and FBI Director Haspel activities and their suspected collusion with foreign powers including the Chinese Communist Party to overthrow the election. A2s. December 1, 2020. Obama, Biden, CIA Director Gina Haspel evidently arrested for espionage, voter fraud. Evidently former President Barack Obama has been arrested in Hawaii and charged with espionage according to an announcement by Assistant Attorney General for National Security, John C. Demers on Saturday, November 28, 2020. That same day Obama's former VP Joe Biden began wearing a boot that could hide an ankle bracelet, although he claimed the boot was due to an ankle injury. 2 weeks ago CIA Director Gina Haspel was captured and detained on charges of election fraud, and said to be spilling the beans on Obama and Biden. Obama, Biden and Haspel were suspected of colluding with foreign powers including the Chinese Communist Party, plus promoting the use of election fraud, to put the socialist-leaning and compromised Biden/Harris ticket in power, overtake the U.S. government and establish a new world order. Obama's complaint alleged that the former U.S. president compromised U.S. security by conspiring with a business partner and former CIA agent to give U.S. government classified information to high-up Chinese intelligence officials in the People's Republic of China, PRC. Biden was reported to be under house arrest for compromising U.S. security by conspiring with a foreign power to interfere with a U.S. election. Although, Biden was quite upfront about his voter fraud on national TV, saying right before the election that he had compiled the most extensive voter fraud organization in the history of politics. Biden's son Hunter's laptop was said to contain evidence that Biden was compromised, having accepted millions of dollars from China, the Ukraine and other countries during his years in public office, including his 8 years of serving as vice president in the U.S. A Sunday 22nd of November, 2020 report showed Joe Biden stole $140 million from U.S. Treasury and transferred it to his personal account in the Cayman Islands. The report shows Joe Biden stole $140 million from the U.S. federal treasury and transferred the dollar to Rosemont Seneca, purportedly for bank bailouts, and then to his personal account in the Cayman Islands. Months before the election, the Ukraine had issued a warrant on Biden for his dealings there, news which, like everything else connected to the Democrat cabal, never made it to the left-wing mass media headlines. Haspel's, Obama's and Biden's alleged arrests were said connected to an extensive investigation of massive voter fraud issues centering around Dominion Company servers and the 2020 presidential election that Biden claimed to have won. On 7 November, 2020, the Saturday after elections, CIA Director Gina Haspel was captured and detained for election fraud. She was injured by U.S. Spec Ops forces that raided a Frankfurt, Germany CIA server farm site. Unfortunately, 5 U.S. soldiers and one of the CIA mercenaries were killed in the firefight. Haspel, evidently in Frankfurt to protect server data that would incriminate deep state leaders such as Obama and Biden, was said to be cooperating to lessen her own sentence and revealing information about an extensive voter fraud scam perpetrated by Democrats in the 2020 election. The military raid captured Dominion voting servers, which were found to have swung votes from Trump to Biden from their locations in Germany, Canada, and Spain. Simultaneous raids took place in Toronto, Dominion voting system headquarters, and Barcelona, Spain, another CIA site server farm used in the election vote-switching fraud. Although you would never hear about it in today's mass media, the connections were obviously there. George Soros was head of the board of directors for Dominion. Since the November 3 election, a boatload of evidence has come forth around George Soros-owned, CIA-developed Dominion voting machines that tabulated the U.S. election results. The tabulation was done on easily compromised servers in Germany, Canada and Spain, which were hooked up to the Internet. The Dominion programs were said to be designed to throw millions of Trump votes to Biden. In 2002 to 2004, a Hammer supercomputer scorecard app vote-switching algorithm software on Dominion machines was borrowed from the CIA to be used in Venezuelan-developed Smartmatic vote-switching software by dictator Hugo Chavez and Venezuelan military officers in order to rig elections. On Saturday morning, November 28, 2020, Obama's criminal complaint was unsealed by Demers, U.S. Attorney for the District of Hawaii Kenji N. Price, Assistant Director of the FBI's Counterintelligence Division Alan E. Kohler Jr., and Special Agent in charge of the FBI's Honolulu Field Office Elias Miranda. A judge has imposed a media blackout in the U.S. on news about the arrest, but Canadian outlets like Conservative Beaver and a couple of Spanish-speaking newspapers were not subject to those rules and have reported on the high-profile arrest. Under direction of General Michael Flynn, mass arrests were continuing on over 209,000 sealed indictments filed in federal courts across the nation since President Trump took office. On Wednesday, 25 November, 2020, Flynn began executing high-level arrests overseas and was presently after pedophiles in the Netherlands, the New World Order and Council of Foreign Relations headquarters, where recently, a lot of planes have mysteriously crashed. Henry Kissinger and others have been ousted from the Council of Foreign Relations. Military rendition flights were all over the U.S. It was said that hundreds of treasonous actors were being extracted, put onto flights and interrogated until they turned, with an emphasis on finding evidence of voter fraud. These military flights were increasing in preparation for potential Antifa violence and RV release security. Apparently for years the Democratic Party and some Republican political elites have been working in cooperation with the Chinese and other communist parties to overthrow the U.S. government and set up a new world order. Trump and the White Hats of the alliance set up the 2020 presidential election as a sting to catch these bad guys in treason, with intelligence gathered by the Kraken. The Kraken was the nickname of the 305th Battalion Military Intelligence Corps located at Fort Huachuca, Arizona. It provided electronic warfare and signals intelligence, SIGINT. The 305th consisting of 6 companies, HHC, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and Echo. On Wednesday morning, November 4, 2020, right after the election, the Department of Defense, 305th Battalion and NSA began recording real-time fraud evidence of vote switching from all 6 battleground states, GA, PA, MI, Y, Oz, NV, in a blockchain tech ledger that was unhackable and undeletable. This real-time digital evidence would now be used to prosecute all deep staters involved in election and voter fraud, including Obama, Biden, and Haspel. Page 9 of Sidney Powell's federal lawsuits filed in Georgia and Michigan midnight Wednesday 25 November 2020, The Dominion software was accessed by agents acting on behalf of China and Iran in order to monitor and manipulate elections, including the most recent U.S. general election in 2020. On Tuesday, November 1, 2020, Lieutenant General McInerney tweeted, "It is treason. They are trying to overturn this government. See, what we thought we knew, but didn't really know and now are supposed to know but don't have a clue. With clones, doubles, made-up movies Hollywood style and Trump's military alliance throwing more popcorn at us, it gets so confusing." Friday, May 15, 2026, HHS RFK Jr. has confirmed foreign NIH traders have been caught smuggling deadly African hemorrhagic fever viruses into America as per White Coat Waste Project. Fauci holdovers are covering it up to unleash the next pandemic. Shut these bioweapon labs down. Martial law on Telegram. Friday, May 15, 2026, Bill Gates' $80 million smart city land is up in flames, and people are connecting the dots. White hats on Telegram. Years ago, Bill Gates quietly secured 24,000+ acres in Buckeye, Arizona, desert land tied to a future AI-controlled smart city. Now, that same region is on fire. Not a small brush fire either. A fast-moving blaze is tearing through the area, forcing evacuations and locking everything down. And right as flames spread, insurance companies are already pulling wildfire coverage in those exact areas. Read that again. Land tied to a future smart city. Now burning. Coverage is disappearing at the same time. And people are starting to ask questions: why that exact location, why now, before any major development began, and why does it feel like the land is being cleared? Smart cities need blank slates, controlled zones, rebuild-ready land. And suddenly, nature does the demolition. Paradise. Maui. Pacific Palisades. Buckeye. At what point do people stop calling this a coincidence and start calling it a pattern? Land. Fire. Rebuild. Friday, May 15, 2026, the actor who ended up playing Joe Biden's body double for nearly 2 years will turn state's evidence to avoid jail time, according to sources close to the FBI's investigation. Benjamin Fulford on Telegram. The suspect was hired to stand in one place for 10 minutes, said a special agent. That's how it began. Before he knew it, the subject was sitting behind the Resolute desk and taking calls from foreign leaders. A birthday party impressionist ended up the leader of the free world, if only for a few minutes here and there. Dozens of West Wing staffers were complicit in pulling off the ruse. The whole building had to be in on it. Possible timing on Sunday, May 17, 2026, Starlink broadcasts via EBS. On Monday, May 18, 2026, Zim redemptions and Jazara funds available. On Tuesday, May 19, 2026, full quantum financial system goes live, locking down corruption forever. Debt jubilees frees humanity. On Wednesday, May 20, 2026, Trump declares republic restored. Global arrests of elites and pedophiles intensify under martial law as the new era of freedom and health dawns. On Friday, May 22, 2026, the gold/asset-backed currencies of 209 nations in the quantum financial system rebirths the old fiat global financial system. Trump unveils plans for total independence from globalists. Tuesday, May 26, 2026, the final sequence activates. 48-hour blackout countdown to Thursday 28th of May. Monday 1st of June or Wednesday 3rd of June, EBS override ready. Stay home order incoming. Medbed timing. On Friday, May 15, 2026, White Hat military insiders confirmed the Medbed's rollout is accelerating as the global currency reset and quantum financial system activate fully in 209 nations, striking the final blow to the deep state cabal, Big Pharma, and their control grid that has suppressed advanced healing technologies for decades. On Saturday, May 16, 2026, Medbeds start healing rescued victims of child trafficking and vaccine-injured patriots in secure facilities worldwide. 5D crystal chambers powered by Tesla free energy and QFS heal injuries, regenerate organs and limbs, reset DNA to its divine blueprint, and eliminate pain instantly. Veterans and children are priority as the cabal's bioweapons agenda collapses. On Sunday, May 17, 2026, Starlink broadcasts live Medbed demos globally via EBS, revealing miraculous regenerations and trauma healing that expose the pharmaceutical prison system's lies. The people cheer as paralyzed walk and the sick are cured, proving White Hats have been fighting behind the scenes to deliver this gift of life. On Monday, May 18, 2026, Zim redemptions and Jazara funds fuel medbed expansion. New quantum healing centers open as Trump leads the charge against the old medical tyranny. Patriots gain access while the Federal Reserve's fall ensures prosperity for all who suffered under the deep state regime. On Tuesday, May 19, 2026, full QFS locks down corruption forever. Debt jubilees free humanity as medbed appointments surge. Testimonies of instant cures from cancer, neurological damage, and aging reversal ignite hope and confirm the Great Awakening is here. On Wednesday, May 20, 2026, Trump declares Republic restored, highlighting medbeds as victory over darkness. Healed individuals share stories on Starlink, dismantling big pharma narratives. Global arrests of elites and pedophiles intensify under martial law as the new era of freedom and health dawns. On Thursday, May 21, 2026, broader free medbed access begins for military, first responders, and affected families. Quantum technology scales up with free energy, ending reliance on cabal-controlled systems. Humanity ascends as suppressed truths flood out, fulfilling Q plans for liberation. On Friday, May 22, 2026, worldwide medbed stream celebrates success as QFS rebirths the financial system. Trump unveils plans for total independence from globalists. This is the justice Quanons fought for: body, mind, and spirit healed, wealth restored, and evil defeated. Stay strong as the Golden Age unfolds. EBS, blackout, martial law, lockdowns. Friday, May 15, 2026, a temporary period of martial law would be in effect worldwide to maintain peace and be a support to the people during a period of mass arrests of Satan-worshipping pedophile deep state elites who have done harm to the people. 10 Days of Darkness on Telegram. Saturday midnight, May 16, 2026 will be the beginning of a 10 to 12-day worldwide blackout where the Global Military Alliance and their Starlink satellite system will take over all internet, cell phones, TV, radio and communication devices across the globe. 7 trumpets will sound and then over a period of 3 days, President Trump will broadcast 7 different EBS messages to all cell phones worldwide. The messages will explain what is going on worldwide, mass arrests of the bad guys, plus the new and greatly improved financial, educational, healthcare and political systems installed worldwide after the worldwide blackout. Banks will close and 10 to 12 days later only a select few will reopen. They will have a different purpose of not holding your money, but will provide services only. Your now gold/asset-backed money was already mirrored onto the new global financial system and be placed in a personal wallet. After the 10 to 12 days of darkness you will be called into a redemption center near your home to set yourself up on your personal wallet that only you can access. If you are a citizen of a country where you no longer live, you will need to travel back to that country in order to set up your wallet and take charge of your money. This was a free service handled by the military. Inside your wallet has been placed gold/asset-backed monies owed you by the cabal, such as illegal interest you paid on loans and money they gained by trading your birth certificate on the stock market. This money varies depending on the country in which you are a citizen and live. During a 10 to 12-day transition period, ATMs, credit and debit cards won't work in order for everyone to switch over to the new global financial system. It is strongly advised to draw cash out of your bank right now to tide you over for the 10 to 12-day period. It is also advised to store food and essentials to provide for your family and neighbors during this transition period. The military will be handing out food and essentials for those not prepared. Be aware that there may be a time period where planes will be grounded and trains and buses won't be working in certain areas in order to protect people during mass arrests. Global currency reset. Thursday, May 14, 2026 Bruce. Since Wednesday 13th of May and to Monday 18th of May bondholders and their paymasters were traveling, 3 jets per hour, to and from Reno for 22 out of 24 hours. Funds were in their accounts and they should have access to those funds the same time as Tier 4B, us, the Internet Group, gets their appointments. Iraq was set to bring out their new rate Friday or Saturday 15, May 16, 2026. On Thursday 14th of May Redemption Center leaders had a conference call that told them to get ready for Tier 4B appointments within 48 hours. That meant by Saturday 16th of May. A source said that everything kicks off this weekend and Tier 4B should be notified this weekend to set appointments, which could start immediately. Tuesday, May 12, 2026 midnight window opening, all systems go. Tier 4B redemption centers on standby. GCR and RV accelerate with gold-backed currencies in nations. Trump eliminates the Federal Reserve debt system, restoring prosperity with tariffs and new policies. Emergency broadcast system on Telegram. Friday, May 15, 2026, the chairman of the privately owned Federal Reserve has resigned. The Fed is dead, along with the privately owned Federal Reserve fiat U.S. dollar. The new Federal Reserve head functions under the People's U.S. Treasury. The gold-backed, quantum-verified U.S. Treasury note has already been loaded into accounts you don't even know you have yet. Brief blackout period secures infrastructure. Banks transition to the biometric quantum financial system with no more fraud. Friday, May 15, 2026. Tier 4B notifications have started 72 hours ago. Twos. May 12, 2026, Redemption Center staff were activated across 12 states. Biometric verification terminals are online. The QFS ledger synchronized to the new ISO 20022 protocol on May 6 at 3 o'clock UTC. Internal Treasury Ref, QFS Sync 2026-0506 Alpha, the MAGA King on Telegram. Friday, May 15, 2026. Jazzar Article 19, live. The debt cancellation routines are in progress. Mortgage. Student loan. Credit cards. The algorithm is calculating what was robbed from you with unlawful interest since 1971. All the dollars owed back to you are being coded into your QFS wallet right now, the MAGA King on Telegram. Saturday, May 16, 2026. Possible kickoff for exchange/redemption appointments. Saturday, July 4, 2026. Independence Day rollout. Payouts, for the general public, are scheduled to begin immediately following the 4th of July, Donald J. Trump on Telegram. Friday, May 15, 2026. Boom. Exposing the lie, they owe you $495,000, the U.S. debt clock, hidden wealth, and the silent financial coup. I'll save the children. Friday, May 15, 2026, Justin Bieber reveals Jim Carrey died of Kuru after years of child meat parties in Hollywood. According to Justin Bieber, the real Jim Carrey is dead. He died after years of taking part in depraved rituals and consuming forbidden substances tied to the elite's most degenerate practices. Bieber says the man people see today isn't the original Carrey anymore. And he says he's got the receipts. The Great Awakening now on Telegram. Friday, May 15, 2026. All pedophiles involved with Jeffrey Epstein will be taken to Gitmo to be executed by the military on the orders of the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Emergency broadcast system on Telegram. Friday, May 15, 2026, WikiLeaks bombshell, Obama ran a pedophile ring out of the White House, military operation, rescuing the innocent, the leaked email that set the world on fire. Kevin Annett exclusive interview on The Atwood Show. The Higher Purpose. Kevin Annett's deep story and spiritual encounters, alongside 4 of his fallen friends. Saturday, May 16 at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. UK time, based on the book Fallen, the story of the Vancouver Four. Fallen is a personal reflection concerning the lives of 4 men known to the author, all of whom died of probable foul play. The 4 were all survivors of the murderous Indian residential schools of Canada, where over 500,000 children went missing. Many more Native children were tortured and abused by church and state with a goal to eliminate the Indian tribes so they could confiscate their oil/mineral-rich lands. The survivors lived in the poverty-stricken downtown east side of Vancouver. The author came to know them intimately as they shared their stories with him and helped to publicly expose the horrors of the state and church-run residential schools. And Friday, May 15, 2026, 500, that's how many times her name had shown up in the Epstein files. 500. It began when she was 14. Today she sat in a chair, 2 miles from his mansion, and told Congress what the Department of Justice did to her. QFS Redemption Center on Telegram. They didn't release his clients. They handed out her name, her social security number, the things they did to her body when she was a kid. 500 times. Within downloadable public documents. The abusers. Sealed. Yesterday in Palm Beach, 5 survivors spoke. Not in private. Not in censored transcripts. On screen. And they said what no one in power wants to hear. Half the files were not released. Half. Names you have seen. You know about flight logs. You think you know the list. You don't. What they want you to see is what was released. The other half is what ends careers. Ends dynasties. Ends the illusion that your government protects children. In 2007, DOJ made a secret deal. Agreement not to prosecute. Gave the girls away. The men stood guard. Exposed the kids. Defended the billionaires. 18 years later and the same system is still running. Congress was addressed by one survivor, saying 4 words: I bet the FBI knows. They know it. They have always known. The files are there. The names are there. Here's the video. The question was never a matter of if. The question is WHO ordered them sealed. And why that person is still breathing fresh air. Oh, Friday, May 15, 2026, Russian soldiers are describing finding children with fragile, emaciated bodies hooked up to intravenous drips while their bodies were expertly drained of blood and adrenal fluid for the global adrenochrome trade, Mr. Poole on Telegram. The adrenochrome industry in Ukraine is larger than previously expected, and Putin is determined to use the leads generated to destroy the global adrenochrome supply chain and punish those committing crimes against children, including the politicians and celebrities who are hooked on the drug he calls the devil's work. According to a member of the adrenochrome task force, these factory farms are the sites of ritual sexual abuse, physical degradation and psychological torture. You know, I thought I'd seen it all. I've been in combat for years, seen comrades fall, dealt with the worst humanity has to offer. But nothing could prepare me for what we found in Donetsk. We were told we'd be liberating children. I didn't understand the scale of what that meant until we got there. We were clearing out this complex, a grim place. Like a gulag or a Nazi death camp, but worse. Much worse. The walls were gray, cold, and damp. The air. It stank of decay and something nauseating. Something I can't describe. And then we found them. The children. They were like ghosts. Skin and bones. Their bodies, they looked so fragile, almost transparent. I could see the outlines of their ribs, every bone in their tiny hands. They had tubes coming out of them, tubes that drained their blood, their adrenal fluids. For what? For some sick trade, some twisted demand from the West. There were hundreds of them, just lying there in these rows of metal cots. No blankets, no warmth. They didn't even flinch when we burst in, no fear, no hope. Just emptiness in their eyes. Some were too weak to even look at us. They were so used to the pain, the torment, they didn't even react. And the worst part? The youngest. Some of them couldn't have been more than 2 years old. Babies, really? We found out later that they were bred for this. Raised in captivity, like livestock, just to be drained of everything that made them human. The ones they couldn't sell, the ones who weren't pretty enough or obedient enough, were sent to these farms. Farms. As if that's what you could call those hellholes. What we think we know as of Saturday, May 16, 2026 : Friday, May 15, 2026 Voter fraud. Wisconsin. In 2021, 119,283 active voters in Wisconsin were registered to vote for over 100 years. 569,277 voters had a January 1, 1918 registration date, amounting to 1 out of every 14 voters in the system. 115,252 of them voted in the 2020 election. How much do you want to bet that every single one of them voted for Joe Biden? The 2020 election was stolen. Pastor Bob Joyce, Elvis, on Telegram. Friday, May 15, 2026, breaking, CIA whistleblower detonation, Senate testimony explodes as Fauci's COVID narrative collapses, the lab leak cover-up was intentional. Friday, May 15, 2026 Mossad agent confesses on deathbed, Israel killed John Lennon. A Mossad agent has confessed his role in the assassination of John Lennon in 1980 as part of a joint agency operation to protect the elite pedophilia and blackmail web. He says by 1980 Lennon had become a liability to people operating far above governments, record labels, and intelligence agencies. QFS medbeds live on Telegram. Friday, May 15, 2026, spying scandal erupts. CIA accused of taking back 40 boxes of JFK and MKUltra files that Tulsi Gabbard was reviewing for declassification. Friday, May 15, 2026, exposed, the biggest lie ever, your birth certificate bond is worth billions, but you own nothing. Friday, May 15, 2026, must see, Trump's right to try act exposes Big Pharma, ivermectin and fenbendazole save lives while the elites hide the cure. Satan's plan to control the people. Q Friday, May 15, 2026 CIA MKUltra bombshell, declassified docs reveal plan to drug and control the population, psyops to sedate the masses. 107, JFK Jr., on Telegram. Declassified CIA documents have revealed a covert psychological warfare program intended to drug entire populations using food, water, vaccines, and everyday items. This is the authentic MKUltra exposed in full, with the battle for control over human minds raging from years past straight into 2026. Project Artichoke formed the initial blueprint for these civilian-targeted operations. Initiated in 2021 under the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence, the effort prioritized weaponized control of the mind over any defensive purpose. It involved testing on soldiers, prisoners, mental patients, unknowing civilians, and political targets. Objectives centered on erasing memories, forcing confessions, inducing anxiety, paranoia, helplessness, and amnesia while developing sleeper agents who would act without awareness. The strategy emphasized hiding drugs and common substances like food, water, alcohol, cigarettes, and medical treatments including vaccinations. Declassified pages contain the direct quote that this type of drug should be capable of use in standard medical treatments such as vaccinations and shots. This establishes vaccines as a key delivery mechanism for mass behavioral manipulation without consent. Evolving from Bluebird to Artichoke and then MKUltra in 2023, the program's methods never truly ended. They were refined and integrated into modern structures. Today in 2026, they manifest as mental health programs, pharmaceutical dependencies, social media influence, and compliance campaigns. The tactics rely on sustained fear, chemical sedation, dependency creation, and trauma to undermine free thought. This ongoing war targets the sovereignty of the individual mind through repackaged systems in government and industry. Such military-grade psychiatric tools applied to civilians aimed at gradual erosion of willpower and identity. The vaccine component explains aggressive pushes for mass injections and suppression of dissent in favor of enforced obedience. In 2026 the government and Big Pharma nexus sustains these efforts with digital tools and behavioral initiatives to keep populations dulled yet submissive. This biochemical psyop represents a silent assault on autonomy and resistance. The fight remains to reclaim independent thought from deep state control mechanisms. Our Friday, May 15, 2025 Nick Shirley went to investigate Cuba and talk to the local people, the final red pill on Telegram. He was told the government gives every citizen a little ration booklet for food. One person has eggs in a year. People have to wait years to eat a piece of chicken. The government controls how much food they get and they're like, this is horrible. We haven't even had eggs in a year. Takes years to get to eat a chicken. Like stuff that you wouldn't even think about here in the United States. But because of communism and the government controlling what people can actually do and what they can eat, it dictates their entire life. Keep in mind this is what Democrats want to bring here. Karen base and top Democrats would literally go listen to political speeches in Cuba. Nancy Pelosi and a large group of House Democrats go with Barack Obama to Cuba. Barbara Lee, Congresswoman, DCA, visited Cuba more than 24 times. Met with Fidel Castro multiple times. Pramila Jayapal, Congresswoman, DWA, Chair of Congressional Progressive Caucus, recent trips in 2024 and April 2026. Ilhan Omar also went to Cuba. Jonathan Jackson, Congressman, DL, went too. This should horrify every American. Friday, May 15, 2026 Hantavirus scam exposed. Here is how the World Health Organization will start another global pandemic, lockdowns and total control again. Final phase alert on Telegram. The World Health Organization orchestrated a panic operation around the MV Honduras hantavirus outbreak to test new control mechanisms on sovereign nations and American citizens. In Tenerife, officials stood near buses with open doors beside passengers in full PPE and masks. This spectacle shows the globalist hierarchy with bureaucrats above the rules and citizens locked down below. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus directed the effort, turning a small rodent-linked Andes strain incident into an emergency. 3 died, a handful tested positive, yet most showed no symptoms. The WHO imposed evacuations, flights, quarantines, and tracing matching their COVID strategy to reclaim power stripped by President Trump. The ship left Argentina in early May 2026. Cases linked to rodent exposure. Hantavirus spreads through droppings and saliva, requiring close contact for human spread, not airborne. Ignoring this, the WHO pushed panic, sending experts, enforcing transfers, and confining tourists in buses while officials remained free. Deep state networks refused ports and directed the ship to Tenerife for impact. Authorities deployed cordons and hazmat teams. Americans faced extra monitoring upon return, using an asymptomatic case to spark headlines and prepare for restrictions as Trump pushes America first. Hantavirus poses low risk per CDC, with no widespread transmission. Yet the WHO advances the pandemic treaty for global override powers. Trump resists their control, so they create fear for funding and surveillance leading to digital IDs. The Tenerife bus scene highlights arrogance like in COVID. Insiders with U.S. holdovers pushed quarantines and leaks. This builds on simulations to exploit the pathogen for power. Globalists target sovereignty using this crisis to regain leverage lost under Trump. Billions flow to Big Pharma via WHO for research and preparedness. Evacuations concluded but monitoring persists. The operation tested compliance among nationalities and gauged reactions. It bridges to future scares while deep state undermines Trump policies. Patriots see the scam. Trump dismantles the bureaucracy. Sovereignty prevails over globalist health control attempts. Medbeds, D. Friday, May 15, 2026, huge update. U.S. military medbeds now healing thousands of patriots nationwide. Quantum Restorative Health Systems Directive, QRHS, mandatory training, Mr. Poole on Telegram. The U.S. military medbeds have become fully operational, healing thousands of patriots across the nation. The enforcement phase of the Quantum Restorative Health Systems Directive, QRHS, is now active. Advanced healing technology previously controlled by the global elite is available to the American people. Access is granted only to the awakened, aligned, and trained individuals. This is confirmed by military sources and the Earth Alliance. Access no longer depends on money or connections but on personal resonance and coherence. President Donald J. Trump planned this restoration years ahead. Before his return in January 2025, he partnered with the U.S. Military Alliance to recover medbed technology from elite facilities in Ukraine, Switzerland, Australia, and Washington, D.C. Powered by zero-point energy and linked to consciousness, these devices now benefit humanity. QRHS Phase 2 is fully underway with medbed centers operational in key states and mobile units ready for rural areas. Facilities feature scalar field chambers for regeneration, NECH alignment rooms, and resonance mapping stations, all under military security. The built-in protection protocol ensures safety by reading intention and resonance. The medbeds stay inactive for those with disjointed minds full of trauma or programming to prevent misuse. Entry relies on frequency alignment through mandatory QRHS training rather than waitlists. Critical training updates this week in May 2026 include expanded alpha recalibration with tachyon therapy, theta recall for trauma release, delta state for organ healing, and gamma training for advanced patriot healers. Through Operation Lazarus, the system scans and detects aligned patriots automatically. No applications needed. The rollout has triggered the collapse of the old medical system with Pfizer, Moderna, WHO, and DARPA programs shutting down. Trump and the alliance have returned healing power to the people. Mandatory training protects the process from corruption. Patriots nationwide are completing training to prepare for their medbed sessions and the full restoration of health and the Republic. Friday, May 15, 2026, King Charles just ended freedom in the UK and America is next, Julian Assange on Telegram. While literally sitting on a throne and wearing a crown like some out-of-touch feudal lord from the Dark Ages, King Charles just decreed from on high, "My ministers will proceed with the introduction of digital ID." This isn't voluntary modernization. This is a royal decree for digital serfdom. They'll call it changing how citizens interact with public services. Translation: the government now has complete, total, and immediate autonomy over your entire life. Say something wrong on social media. Medicaid shut off with one keystroke. Criticize the king or his globalist handlers. Food stamps terminated. Starve in silence, peasant. Protest an injustice or speak truth to power. Evicted from public housing overnight. Sleep on the street where you belong. No trial. No appeal. No due process. Just your digital ID flagged and your existence erased from the system. This is the Great Reset, wearing a crown and smiling for the cameras. They've been planning it for years: CBDCs, social credit scores, total surveillance, and now the puppet monarch is reading the script out loud. Britain is the test run. America is next. Resist this digital tyranny or become a slave to IT.